Hello and welcome to In the Court of the Wenton Knave. Join me on a journey from Freak Out to Civilization Phase 3. As I've said previously, I'm not worthy. These are only mini reviews, they're not proper reviews. But if I can get through the whole thing all together, hopefully that'll mean something. So, as I said, I'm not worthy. No more than today. For today we're doing Lumpy Gravy. Lumpy Gravy has a beard. Okay, this is where it gets serious. Those first two albums were pale in comparison to what he was doing here. There's three versions of this album. He made a fully orchestral album, which was with another record label. So there was contractual problems with that because he was just the composer and the conductor. He felt he wasn't actually contractually bound to the other record label, but it turns out he was, or they thought he was. So later on, when he finally got the tapes back, he made a new version, which is substantially different. But it's not just orchestral. It includes all sorts of bits and pieces of stuff over the years, as well as the famous recordings of people inside the piano, with the bass pedal pressed, giving it that freaky echoey sound. It's interesting that he also went on to record a third version of the album, which was in the 80s, which was essentially an overdubbed version of this, with extra stuff overdubbed on it, which is a bit naughty. So we never speak of that version. This is the second version, so that's the one I'm reviewing because I haven't heard the first version, but I look forward to one day getting that on the Lumpy Money box set. Many consider this too far. You've got a whole collage of music concrete, modern classical, bits of random bits of music, and slowed down burps and weird sound effects and all this stuff. So you hear that description of it and you think, well, that's going to be a bit heavy. And it is an accurate description, but to me this is so accessible. It's just fantastic. What an album. It's only about just over 30 minutes long, which isn't much. To me, this is one of three albums from the 60s which are definitive Zappa albums. Initially, it was difficult to persuade the musician to play it because it was hard. And their response was, well, you're just a guy in a rock band, you don't know what you're doing. That music you've given me is impossible. But he persuaded them very easily of his genius. You shouldn't really use that word lightly, but that word applies here. It doesn't apply usually when people apply it to famous rock people. But what he's doing is very, very special. So he became good friends with these orchestral musicians. There's all sorts of bits of stuff in here. It's an amazing experience to listen to. There's a piece called The Big Squeeze, I think from 66 or 67, and there's just little bits of it all over the album. He also uses a thing called the apostolic blurch injector, which was really a distortion device and a thing which could just mess up the sound on all sorts of bits of recordings of sound. So all the really crazy noises on there are created using that. Okay, so the first track is called The Way I See It, Barry. That's just a brief piece of dialogue before we go into the Lumpy Gravy theme, which I also believe is called Duodenum. Great theme, but recorded in 1964. And I forgot to mention also the original theme to Captain Beefheart and the Grunt People, the abandoned movie. So this isn't on the original Lumpy Gravy from 1967, and it works so well here. It became known as the theme, and it's accessible, and it's catchy, and it's great, brilliant stuff. And then we go on to the main theme of the first side, which is Oh No. I really like Oh No. I think there's something very definitive about it in its Zappa-iness. It's almost like the Zappa theme. It's a bit more elaborate than it initially sounds, but again, it's very accessible. So at this point in the album, I find it surprising people find it inaccessible. And a lot of it isn't. A lot of it is very catchy. Probably one of the reasons why I find it so easy to listen to. There's a little bit of Son of Orange County in there as well. Then we go back to some of the dialogue. First major bit of heads inside the piano dialogue, bit of nostalgia, and a little bit of a song called Hurricane from 1963. And a bit of nostalgia in it from Kansas. Those two tracks kind of go together as dialogue-y stuff. And there is a fantastic bit of maybe big band jazz called High Stepping, and that's from 1961. Very early days of, I assume, Studio C. Maybe even earlier than that. Might be sped up, but it's really good. We've got Bored Out in 90 Over, which is more of the apostolic blurch injector sounds with the Motorhead Sherwood talking as he does about stuff. Almost Chinese. We get to this track called Big Squeeze, and there's a good bit of it there, and it does sound Chinese. And then we have more Motorhead talking about switching girls like cars. It's at this point you realise, are we making fun of him? We're laughing. There's humour in there. Are we making fun of him? He sounds like an idiot. But then we stream back into Oh No again, and the track is called Oh No Again. That's very profound, going back into Oh No. It's like we've been through all this, the craziness of life, and we're back into this fantastic theme once again. And then we're back to Motorhead once again, with at the gas station, working at a gas station. I think he's talking about someone else. And another pickup. Does that mean a guitar pickup has broken, another pickup has broken, or does it mean someone else you've picked up? I'm not sure, maybe both. There's a really, really cool little slice of some live mothers from 66 with basically harmonica and thrashy guitar. one of the best bits on the album in a way, but it's just a fraction. And then we're back into Big Squeeze again with some very atonal classical stuff. The final track on the first side is I Don't Know If I Can Go Through This Again, which is mostly from the original orchestral sessions, and that's probably the strongest part of the album, I think. There's some very powerful stuff on there. It's modern classical, so it's not for the faint-hearted. Some of it is using the Apostolic Blurch Injector, but most of it is orchestral, and that's a great ending to the better side, I think. The second side, very Distraughtening. There's something very stupid he says, this guy is talking about here. It sounds ridiculous, but the actual thing he's talking about is very interesting, about everything being one note, because that was the concept that Zappa took quite seriously, and that his whole body of work is one piece of music, one note, and that's very profound. And to get Zappa, you've got to take the whole body of work as one thing. Lots of speeded up stuff going on and things like that, and we go into White Ugliness, which is a couple of members of the band talking about fighting or something, and it sounds like they're making it up, it sounds stupid, and then we get the famous laugh from one of the members of the Mothers, ridiculous laugh, and the line, I remember, oh no I don't remember, which is funny. And we get into Amen, which is lots of percussion, not as strong as at the end of the first side, but it's okay. And then we get a little bit of what I think is B-Fart, the Just One More Time, which is another funny moment. And a Vicious Circle, which is a bit more talking and a bit more orchestral stuff, leading us into King Kong. That's quite a long time before you get to King Kong on the second side, which makes it less accessible. It's great to hear a different version of King Kong, which is a bit slower, a bit more jazzy maybe. More of that to follow. The Drums Are Too Noisy is almost just a drum solo with some effects on it, but it's okay. And then we have Kangaroos and Envelops the Bathtub, which are really just track titles from some of the voices, which are just cutting into what is really the big orchestral finale. And again, there is some fantastic stuff in there. It's really those two moments, that track 8 and 9 on the second side and track 12 on the first side, are the meat of Lumpy Gravy. But then it closes on Take Your Clothes Off, which is the lyricless version of Take Your Clothes Off When You Dance. Of course you don't dance to Lumpy Gravy, so it's just Take Your Clothes Off, and it's strangely moving. Recorded in 1964, so it's not the Mothers and it's not the orchestral stuff. It worked so tremendously well as an end to an album. So yeah, that's Lumpy Gravy. I'm not worthy of reviewing that. It's an amazing achievement. One of his greatest moments. See you next time.